Welcome back, everybody, to another week of chaos led by Junker Queen, ruining all kinds of mentals across the league and boosting some mentals if your name is Bread and you're a Spitfire fan.
Okay, I've just got to say, before we get too far into the episode,
I'll take it.
I've just got to say,
I'll take it.
Oh,
I'll take it.
I told you
I'll
so.
take it.
I'll take your it. Face. That's 2 weeks in a row.
In your face.
2 weeks in a row that I've been like, here's my prediction, and you've been like,
I will.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
You're better
and I'm
at
like,
prepping my own team than I am.
Okay. Yeah, 2 weeks. The Outlaws have just boomed you, and it's been beautiful, and I love the Spitfire. To be fair,
the first one, I happily accept that boomage. I was rooting for that one, even though I didn't pred it. But yeah, we'll get to the other thing. Yeah, the Junker Queen meta continues to be the most mind-boggling meta in existence. Every week.
I think it's fun.
It's fun. It's fun to see the power dynamic shift. But I can't believe the devs made a zero skill meta where teams that usually can't touch the shock and glads.
I think that's just Glads fans being mad.
I think it's Reiner being mad, but that's
True.
neither here nor there.
Reiner.
Let us start with our normal news roundup, stuff that happened mostly last week that we saw coming, but because we air and record on Tuesdays, we miss a day or two. So we'll start with the first thing. Justice sending off their players to Narnia. First one, they sent Happy to the Gladiators, which if the Gladiators didn't have the record they have, and I mean, even though they do have the record, this team on paper, it's just not fair. It's just not fair. Kevster Happy, like whoa, huh? And because,
I mean, that being said, it's not enough to save them.
No, but
from themselves now.
I think Happy, because Patapon has the injury that he's talked about, he's not going to be playing the stage. Happy is definitely a more consistent player than Ons, and Happy Kevster in most metas. I mean, that's kind of scary and kind of. If they didn't have the record they had, if they were dunking on everyone, I'd be like, someone needs to investigate this. They're buying a championship. They're doing the LA
Rams.
Rams.
At this point, it's like they're already in the playoffs. It's okay if they have a bad tournament cycle.
And we'll get to that later, but...
So I think, like, them picking up Happy,
just makes
even
them
if
better.
It's not enough to save them this tournament cycle, like...
It's kind of
They
nasty.
were already, I think, favorited to win the whole thing. And I
now
think this definitely helps.
So the first Justice piece goes off to the LA Gladiators. Happy. The second one, Vigilante went to the Atlanta Reign, which I think is great because Ultraviolet did not look comfortable on Brig. Vigilante did. And we saw a pretty immediate impact of Vigilante on the team. And now it gives them the option to do double flex without having OG having to pick up a Zenyatta, which he didn't look bad on it. But having an actual cracked flex support doing that instead of OG definitely helps the Atlanta Reign. Get some more consistency in there,
Yeah. I think the Glads pickup is definitely one for the year. The Vigilante pickup is definitely one for this meta. I think Vigilante is
well, and it depends on what depends on where we go next with the next meta. But Vigilante his Brig is an upgrade over Ultraviolets.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And with that completes the Justice. To be fair, the Justice didn't collapse like I thought they would. I thought they were going to implode and they were going to sign a contenders team, but no, they just dropped Vigilante, Mag, and Happy, sent them off, and then they kept their core 5, so they just brought up 3 of their bench players. And I thought that this team was going to just crash and burn roster-wise, but they actually didn't. They kept players. I did not think they were going to keep Decay. I'm going to be honest. I thought Decay was going somewhere, but I guess they just want to build around him like other teams build around. So it's good that they found homes, though. It's good that they found a place to go. And another player that found a place to go was Kaan of the Paris Eternal, has moved on to your London Spitfire to give Spitfire a double flex support option as well, so that they don't have to worry about putting Admiral on, or is it Landon? I don't remember who their main support is.
Landon.
They don't have to put a main support on flex support. It helps. And Kaan is a great Zen, but he is kind of a monkey brain sometimes. Hopefully Christopher helps that, because That's his biggest weakness, is he kind of makes some weird decisions sometimes, but he frags out.
Yeah, I think it's a good pickup, and yeah, I think it's good to be a fan of a team that's picking up people instead of dropping people.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
But it isn't
In your
all sunshine and
face.
rainbows, though, for the London Spitfire, because in order to
Yeah,
get
that's
Kaan,
true.
they had to
They
part
dropped
ways
Spilo.
with their assistant coach Spilo, who didn't originally have a social media goodbye post. He posted a tweet longer that talked about a lot of kind of some of the back stuff, talked about his pay, talked about why he was working remotely. I don't think he had seen the team at all this season.
No, he hadn't.
And he talked about how the Cloud9 management denied a farewell social media post, but approved the bone back farewell post. It didn't look great. That twit longer didn't make the Spitfire look real great. And
I mean, the thing is I feel like coaching in esports is kind of a weird job right now, especially for something like Overwatch League. The Overwatch League right now just isn't profitable, and we've talked
No.
about this a few times. And so it's like, I mean, he even said this was going to be his last season.
Yeah, he was going
And
to
so
stop
it's
anyways.
like, I think that was something, as I read the tweet longer, it was like, it was less about like the organization itself is terrible.
It's more
It
the
was more
league,
like
and
the league
Blizzard
is in a bad
is in a
spot.
bad spot.
And I think we all kind of know that, and you know, it it wasn't like anything mind-boggling to
No,
me. Like nothing
it
he
made
said was
sense.
like, yeah, and it's like, sure, it doesn't paint the org in the best light,
But I mean,
but
you
like,
can't entirely fault them if the league's
yeah.
not making money.
Well, and that's the thing. Cloud9 is an organization that is, you know, it's got its hands in, you know, every esport out there pretty much,
It's
and
got
it's
lots of
like,
money that they're trying to
yeah,
spend on esports.
and they're trying to spend it where they'll get it back. And if they think, you know, oh, Overwatch League isn't the place to put our money, then maybe that says more about the league than it does
The
the
org doesn't
organization.
want to spend. They're not the Gladiators owned by Kroenke, who literally just buys championships with the Rams and stuff. The
Yeah.
Cloud9 has a lot of teams and a lot of games where they just don't have the money to spend around. And I mean, Spilo talked about it in his tweet longer. He was like, it makes sense, invest in a player that can help you perform better than a coach who's operating remotely, who, isn't able to do a whole lot. So it is what it is. I don't imagine it's not going to affect the Spitfire's performance at all, because they still have Christopher and the other coaches. But this happened this happened kind of last week a little bit. But then
Yeah, it was like
something
late in the
that
week.
dropped last night that baffles me a little bit is the Houston Outlaws and the Seoul Dynasty traded Creative and Iris. A 1-for-1 trade. I imagine this happened last week because it couldn't have happened, after the trade deadline, and neither of them played, which is probably why we saw Profit on the Brig. This is interesting, and this had to have been something like Iris wanted out of the Outlaws, and we knew from the report that the Outlaws were looking to send Iris somewhere else. I imagine Iris probably wanted out of the team. But as to how they managed to talk Creative into this, like, Creative had to have been okay with it and wanted to do it. It could be a situation like with Happy. Happy wanted to see other countries, which is why he chose to come to the Outlaws after 2020. So maybe Creative had something like that, but he's never been on a mixed roster. I don't even think it's like Creative versus Iris. They both have their strengths. It's like Iris's BAP is cracked, but Creative has the better Ana. Neither of them are playing Brig, so it's like
I think it's definitely like a personal
decision
choice that both these players made, because I doubt that it was like, an organization trying to trying to make this swap happen necessarily, because it's not like either of those players is significantly better or worse than the other.
I would say it's a side grade for both, so it had
so I think, which makes it so it won't really make a huge impact to our sides of things. I don't think I don't think gameplay will get altered. Team position won't really get altered.
I don't imagine either of these players are even going to be playing the stage. It seems like the Outlaws and the Dynasty have their set players that they want to play in the roles. But if we go into another double flex, well, then we would see them implement it again. But that's it for the team moves. And the last bit of news, which has probably brought a sigh of relief to all of us, is Aaron Keller tweeted on Sunday, I believe, about how they've been monitoring the league. They've been looking at their internal play tests, and there will be balance changes coming after the Summer Showdown to Junker Queen. So
Nice.
we will have a patch following the Summer Showdown going into the Countdown Cup with a nerfed Junker Queen of some sort. As to what they decide to nerf, it probably is going to have something to do with the commanding shout and the interaction of if it, how much health it gives teammates, that's probably where the nerf will come, is in the commanding shout, because the rest of her kit overall isn't bad. Her ult's really good, but the commanding shout is what pushes her into broken territory.
It would be interesting to see, would it completely break her as a character if they took out the bonus health completely and just made it a speed boost?
So I think you need to keep the health in some form, but I think what needs to be toned down is the allied health that's given. Because if she only gave herself 100 health...
so if she boosted her health up herself and then gave
the speed boost, that probably would be better. And I think they also should look at making it so it doesn't stack with Lucio, because if you remove that as well, well then it doesn't, the interactions are slightly different, because then you use them separately instead of at the same time to just turbo speed at people. But it's just something they could test. I imagine
my problem with that would just completely kill one of them. It would make it so if you were doing something, it would be absolutely useless. It's like that's like if someone was shooting through BAP's ult and they were being mercy boosted, mercy boost would just be deactivated. It's like, well, then why does mercy exist as a character? I feel like it would just feel bad.
Yeah,
I think someone do something and have it be completely useless.
Okay, that's fair. Although the mercy damage boost versus an ult is slightly different than two abilities on cooldown.
Well, okay, then let's say, I just think things like that should always
be allowed to stack.
Yeah, it's like, I'm trying to think of other examples.
There aren't a whole lot of other overlapping abilities.
It's like CC. If you have two boops, should they both be active? Like, if you boop someone and someone else boops that same person immediately after, should the boop continue, or should it be unboopable until the person lands?
I guess they'll look at it, and it'll probably just be something with the health, because the health is what's the biggest issue with her right now, is that it's just so much sustain. You can't kill a team when they just immediately get... It was like with Brig. When Brig used to give instant health with her armor packs, that was an issue, and apparently they didn't learn a whole lot from that when they initially made Junker Queen, because that was what really made Goats broken, was Brig giving instant health. And I think Commanding Shout, they could alter it.
Well, even if it didn't give over health, if it just healed,
I think either healing, and if they kept over health, to have it be given over time, like Brig's armor pack, as opposed to an instant 100 health, and so that it can be kind of countered with damage coming in. But it's good to know that we will get a patch for Countdown Cup, so
yeah, definitely
good stuff. But that's enough of news. So first thing we want to start with is just we don't have these split into individual sections. It's just we'll just kind of go with the flow, because APAC once again returned and continue to be a confusing mess. I think that is probably the most accurate way to describe what happened in APAC. And what I want to start with is Shanghai and Seoul kind of redeeming themselves from the midseason madness a little bit. They didn't look flopped over and dead. They kind of owned. Kind of pogged out.
It was good to see, that's for sure. They because there were a lot of worries coming into this, and we talked about them a lot last week when we were prepping for APAC to come back. There were some big worries about these teams, especially playing in the Junker Queen.
We were more worried about Shanghai. So we thought we're going to be able to bounce back, and we still had them rated top of APAC. But Shanghai, we had down at like 4th or 5th. We didn't know how well they were going to do. but I feel like we both kind of just forgot how cracked Who Are You is at Genji,
Yeah.
and how good Lee Jae-gun is on Lucio. We kind of forgot that. Who Are You? Definitely contention of best Genji in the league. He's out here playing Genji like it's still 2017, and he's making everyone else look like a bunch of losers.
And every time you watch him play, you're just like, man, who are you?
He's been waiting. He's been waiting, well, 4 or 5 years for his chance at a full Genji meta where Genji is played 100% of the time, and finally he's unlocked. And I don't imagine we'll see Fleta at all this stage. It's going to be Who Are You and Lip all the way. Void looked really good on the Junker Queen as well. And then obviously Izayaki, Lee Jae-gun, when they're able to play heroes that they're comfortable on, when
awesome.
you don't have to have Bebe in with Izayaki, there's like, it doesn't come close to what we... So it's good to see Dragons coming back to their top of APAC form. And then Dynasty as well looked really good. They came out with an odd lineup, though. I didn't know Stalker played Genji.
Yeah.
I didn't know he played Genji and played Genji that well, because they came rolling out with Stalker Fitz and they put Prophet on the Brig, which means that they didn't. That means that the creative Iris trade was definitely already in the works, because creative would have already been traded, so he wasn't on the roster. But I mean, Prophet,
It looked really good.
I'm pretty sure at one point Prophet had more final blows on Brig than Stalker did on Genji. So,
which says more about his Brig than Stalker's.
Says more about his Brig.
Because, like,
exactly, yeah.
He was going crazy with it. And the interesting thing is he didn't even play Brig when Goats was meta.
He only briefly played it, but it was usually Birdring.
Yeah,
he was the one that was doing the Zarya.
He was usually doing Zarya. So that was interesting to see. It was really cool.
We saw a bit of Prophet Ana as well.
Yeah.
For some interesting stuff, because when Seoul played Chengdu, they brought us on Ilios. They brought us to the Chengdu zone. They came out playing Winston Farah. And it was so exciting to see.
And we talked about Farah briefly, like as a potential thing
that only Jinmu would play.
Yeah, and it wasn't great, but it was fun.
Well, it was funny because on they pulled out to like a lead. They pulled out to a distant, and then Dynasty pulled it back. But they forced Dynasty onto like Diva Tracer on Lighthouse. Like, we got 1 point where it was not a Junker Queen mirror because Hunter said enough is enough. We're playing Winston. It was refreshing to see. Thank you, Chengdu. Yeah. Please do more of this.
Thank you,
Chengdu. Please allow us to see more. I mean, because we haven't seen any Farah in NA. I don't think Farah has been played at all. At all. There's been like APAC Hunters, Jinmu specifically. Farah. And then I think we saw it on Midtown as well from us. I don't remember who pulled it out, but I thought we saw it on Midtown as well, like on defense. Maybe I'm smoking something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know they also brought out the Farah in their fusion match.
They did as well, pull it out in their fusion match. But they just keep getting away with it. The Hunters just keep getting away with it. They're like, Jinmu only can play flex DPS, and the developers are like, well, guess what? He can permanently play Genji. Congratulations.
And they're like, maybe instead of Genji, we'll have him play some Farah instead.
Have him play some Farah instead. Sorry, Jinmu. The Farah bug no longer exists. You cannot get barrages on cooldown like contenders did.
Well, and I feel like one of the issues with Farah in this meta is Farah's ult is kind of a joke compared to Genji.
It basically has to be used as a single target. You have to just single someone out and take. It's like Shatter. It's like if you don't just go for one target, you're not going to get anything with it because you're just going to get overrun. And I mean, he was making it work a little bit, but it's just you have to do.
It's just not as impactful.
You have to do so much in such a little amount of time that unless you're a god, your backline's getting run over before you do anything.
Yeah. Well, and plus right now with as many good Sojourns as there are out there and Ashe players as well, it's like, how are you supposed to survive as as Farah when you can just be one tapped by any of those?
Yeah, it was good to see Jinmu playing that though, and
it was fun, though.
Leave was doing his thing. But oh my goodness, Fusion, what was that? going to 5 against the Dia Junker Queen Sashin Brig, and then getting stomped by
Chengdu,
the Chengdu
who
Hunters.
was running the,
who was running fair.
stuff.
I mean, to be fair, Leave did kind of go sicko mode on him. Like when he pulled out the Widow on Busan, he was just taking names. The whole match, he was diffing Carpe, which, to be fair, I don't understand why Carpe is starting over MN3. I don't understand it at all. Like, nothing against Carpe, but MN3 is just better.
No, the thing about Carpe is one of the greats. Him at his high point, he was one of the greatest in the leagues.
Yeah, but now he's not
one of the greatest in the leagues. But at this point, it's like he's just, you have some of these young players, and one of them on his team,
on his team,
that are just insane at this game. They've been playing it, since it came out, and they're just like built different. And Carpe has always lacked consistency that some of these other players, like Carpe was never a proper. Carpe was never an MN3.
No.
He pops off when he pops off, and then he doesn't when he doesn't. He's more like Happy, I feel like.
No, even Happy's more consistent.
Yeah.
I would say Happy,
especially this
he's
year,
more like
Carpe's
Decay.
just...
Carpe is like Decay.
Yeah, I could see that.
And that he just has matches where he just disappears, but then has moments where he pops off, but he has not done that this season at all.
And that's the thing, is this season he's been even less consistent than him and his work. Like, this is his worst season by far, and he's still getting playtime. And I think at this point it's just because of name recognition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna, like, Carpe's not the reason the Fusion got bodied and why they had to go to 5. Like, they have other issues as well, but I don't understand why you bench MN3 and Zest should permanently be in. Like, they should always be running MN3 Zest and then Aim God Fixar in there, and then having Fury play the Junker Queen just makes sense because he just flex tanks historically are just better aim because their characters are more aim dependent. And it's
because they don't have anything better to do than to aim.
Exactly.
Main tanks, this is what I'm sick of. Okay, side rant. People always talk about how Rhine players and main tanks in general can't aim. Well, the thing is we can't aim. It's not a matter of we can't. It's we have better things to do. Why aim when I'm like, five-heading the whole thing, figuring out exactly, when to shield at the perfect time, when to shatter at the perfect time. Us main tanks, we're just bigger brain than anyone else. And that is why we don't aim. It's not that we can't aim, we just
don't want to aim. We don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Because think about this. If we started aiming, the game would be over, Like,
if Super could aim, buddy.
Oh yeah, that would just be, it would be wrong how powerful it would be.
That's so funny. But you just look at the Valiant. They put Dia on the Junker Queen. Although, to be fair, Dia was kind of nasty with it, especially with the jagged blade with those knife throws. Yeah. He had like almost 40% accuracy with those knives.
Yeah, well, I think part of it, if you look at like the projectile speed and stuff, it's pretty similar to Fire Strike.
A little bit, yeah. It's a smaller hitbox.
It's a smaller hitbox, but it's a similar like speed.
It's a similar speed.
You aim it kind of similar.
You aim it kind of similar, but it's like Dia being able to do that as a DPS player doesn't surprise me. It's like I would expect. Because Junker Queen plays more like a DPS character than a tank player.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it's like putting a DPS player on Junker Queen. I mean, the Outlaws did it, and Valiant doing it doesn't surprise me. But it's
you say Outlaws did it, but let's be real.
Is Dante a DPS player anymore?
Dante is not a DPS player. He
plays Doomfist.
He's a tank player.
He's a tank player now.
He's a tank player.
Now we got to go back to Arc 6 when he was playing Diva, What confuses me more about Valiant, though, is why they have Sashin on the Brig, of all things.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know what No Hill's cooking, but it ain't working. I'm sorry, Valiant, but you kind of got bodied this week, and you are definitely the worst team in APAC now. Although,
I feel like the thing about Valiant is trying to be the hunters. They're like, let's big brain this. Let's figure out what's going on and let's
Not do
moneyball this
that.
thing. They're like, let's moneyball this thing,
Oh,
and then
man.
they're just getting
They're doing
stomped.
straw polls for how they're gonna play each week. They're like, oh, you got the short stick. You're playing Brig this week, Sasha.
No!
Sorry, no, not Brig.
I've never played Brig.
Although,
Doesn't matter.
to be
We're gonna
fair,
lose anyway.
I mean, Valiant did go to 5 against Fusion, and
But it was
Charge.
against Fusion.
So I mean, only negative 0-2, -2 map differential. At least they're not the Spark. Holy Spark! Oh my! I mean, to be fair, none of us foresaw Alpha Yi not being in the lineup. Nothing against Architect, and Architect did okay. And it's really a question of like, is Alpha E really that big of a? It's like, how much of an impact does Alpha E have? Because they did play the 2 best teams in APAC, who are probably 2 of the best teams, who are 2 of the best teams in the world. But not taking a single map, that's just pathetic.
But like, let's say you take out, like, let's choose pretty much any team in the league outside of the Gladiators or the Shock.
Okay.
Like, okay, you have Houston Outlaws. You take out Merit or Pelican. Do they take a single map off of Fuel or Gladiators
exactly.
or
And
Shock? And so that's what we're dealing with. So it's not that like the Spark are like that crazy far behind without Alpha Yi. It's that Alpha Yi is a really good player. Like, I don't think it should come as a surprise that they lost those matches.
But it's not that they lost, it's that how they lost. I mean, they were the second best APAC team in the midseason madness. And Shy, to be fair, kind of had the performance of his life. So it's not reasonable to expect him to do that every time. But I mean, the Spark they just kind of got doormatted. And that says a lot about Seoul and Shanghai, though, and how far ahead they are the rest of APAC right now. That even though Spark were down their star flex DPS players, they weren't even able to take a map off of either of those teams. And I mean, both Seoul and Dynasty went a perfect 2-0, perfect 6 maps. Now, granted, Seoul did just clown around on the Hunters, and the Dragons clowned around on the Charge, but they are head and shoulders ahead of the rest of APAC, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah,
at least
I don't
currently.
think that comes as a huge surprise because I mean, like, I feel like APAC's kind of in a weird spot right now.
They're always in a weird. When is APAC not in a weird spot?
That is true.
It's a perpetual echo chamber of let's have Fusion show up and lose to Valiant but beat Seoul in the same stage.
It's because it's a skillless meta.
A 0 skill meta, can't believe it. Well, speaking of 0 skill meta, Glads once again go 0-2. Gladiators.
Okay, one of them was against the Shock.
True.
Justifiable.
True, but it's that one.
Toronto Defiant.
I mean, Defiant are looking like one of the best teams in this meta right now. And they are committed to go into their own home stage.
Well, you say that, but you look at them against Dallas, they kind of got curb stomped.
I'm not saying they're like, top 2, but top 3.
No, but
top 4. They're in top 5 contention. Because,
I would say top 5.
Because, I mean, although and Hisu have been looking great, and then obviously Churong Twilight, I mean, it seems like those 2 can play anything, any kind of support combination under the sun. And Hotma's been looking good.
But the Glads shouldn't be losing 3-1.
They shouldn't lose 3-1 to Defiant. They shouldn't be going 3-1 against the Defiant team that went to 5 against Titans. They shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know what is. I mean, it's a lot of things. I don't think Reiner has looked particularly good on. But I mean, look at this. Look at this. Like Midtown, they were like 4 meters away with 2 minutes, and they couldn't do it. Dorado, same thing. They got how do you get held that close to spawn?
Well, and think about this. So they have lost this tournament cycle. They are at a lower spot than any team except the Eternal.
Yeah, they've lost more games in the last 2 weeks than they've lost the rest of the regular season combined.
Oh yeah. They're behind the Uprising, the Excel, Mayhem, Outlaws, Reign, Spitfire, Titans. The Titans
the Justice
are ahead of
and
Gladiators.
The Titans. The rebuilt Justice are ahead of the Gladiators who just signed Happy.
This is just... wrong.
And what I mean, they're not their season playoffs are not in jeopardy because next
No.
stage they're not going to lose enough to fall out of guaranteed playoffs. But the question comes, what will they do for these last two matches? They play Paris Eternal and they play Atlanta Reign. Paris Eternal, if the Gladiators lose to the rebuilt Paris Eternal, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
But what is interesting is, do you think the Glads, these last two games, they go, okay, we're not making this tournament, let's take it easy and just give themselves a break and just kind of mentally reset? Or do you think that they should still try for these last two matches?
I think you need to push, because the minute you let up on gas, that's a momentum killer. Because as soon as you start telling yourself, well, it doesn't matter, but as soon as you start telling your team, like, let's take it easy, it's hard to break out of that. Like,
I mean,
sure,
tell that to
they're
the
losing
Dragons
right now.
last year.
Yeah, but it's like, I feel like they need to keep pushing for it. If they lose against the Reign,
I could see them losing to the Reign, though.
And that's the thing, I could see it. But if they end this tournament going 1-6,
1-5,
or 1-5, I mean, like,
they can kiss that one seed goodbye.
That's just rough.
And
plus, it's like, I feel like that kind of pushes them out of. I mean, like, they'll always be a threat at winning the whole thing, but I feel like this kind of pushes them in a momentum hole of sorts, where it's like, how do you come back from this split?
Yeah, I mean, they're not mathematically out of Summer Showdown, but they cannot get there on their own, because the best they can do is 2-4, and then I don't remember what their map differential is, but
right now it's at -6.
So they can go 2-4, 0. That could get you in, but you'd have to have a lot of help.
Yeah.
You'd have to hope.
I don't think
you'd
they
have to hope
chance.
that Mayhem, Outlaws, Reign just get boomed, just get rolled and smoked.
Which
hard.
I mean, Outlaws could.
Yeah, but there's no way that Reign, Mayhem, and Outlaws they need 3 or 4 teams to just get bullied by teams like the Titans and the Justice.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen.
So I think that they need to just kind of take these last 2 games, not to take a break, but to figure out what's going on, because they're just we thought that this meta was going to be perfect for this backline. But I mean, to be fair, when have Funny Astro and Skewed actually played together?
Yeah.
And
true.
It's like Lucio and Brig in this meta aren't played in the same way that they were played in other metas. I mean, Kevster is still doing Kevster things, and same with Happy, but Reiner has not looked very comfortable in the Junker Queen. So it's more Reiner and the backline.
Well, and I feel like Reiner's not there for it. I think that tweet kind of said a lot.
It did.
Yeah.
So I hope the Gladiators get it back, but I mean, they're still going to be a threat, but depending on how the rest of the stage goes, they can pretty much kiss that number 1 seed goodbye, because Shock are probably going to run away with it at this point. Now that they have a 4-game lead on them, Gladiators, if it weren't for those 17 league points, they'd be in trouble. They are really getting saved by those 2 tournament wins, because if they didn't have those, they'd probably have the same number of points as Outlaws and Spitfire, who are 4th, 5th, 6th seed.
Yeah.
So hopefully they get it back together. But a team that is doing well, surprisingly, that we did talk about a little bit in the roster moves is I thought the Justice were going to keel over and die, but they decided, no, we will not lose. We're going to 3-0 the Florida Mayhem with our B team, essentially.
Yeah, and they looked really good doing it,
They looked very good doing it.
Yeah, I think, sometimes I feel like you make changes like Justice did, and teams can kind of take it 2 different ways. They can take it one oh crap, we have no job security, we're all kind of doomed, and it kills them.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can take it okay, I was the second choice player, I'm the cheap option, but I can prove that
I'm still here.
I can prove that I belong. I can prove that, I don't have to have the highest contract to make a difference. And I think the Justice proved that, they've still got it, and these players are going to fight for it, and they looked really good.
They looked very good. Decay on the hit scan on the Sojourn looked really good, and then Assassin, I mean, he's a flex DPS player, so him popping off in Genji isn't too much of a surprise, but Krillin was performing very well on the Brig, and Kalios performed very well on Junker Queen. I mean, to be fair, Mayhem looked This wasn't the Mayhem that beat the London Spitfire 2 weeks ago, but still, come on, Mayhem. Like, Justice literally just lost 3 players, and you do that against them? Okay. Yeah. I mean, but granted, Mayhem were doing some funky stuff and putting Sir Majed on Lucio instead of Onimo for who knows why. So, yeah, Mayhem were making some interesting here. I mean, and Hydron was in over Xe for a lot of the time, whereas they had Xe for a large portion of last day. So they didn't come in with a very smart game plan anyways, but it's good. Justice were already looking good before they dropped players, and for them to still look good afterwards, they're in a great spot to make the tournament as long as they don't flub these last 2 weeks, which are winnable matches for them.
They're sitting 2-1.
Yeah,
with +5.
They have winnable.
That map differential's huge.
They have winnable matches ahead of them, but it's the Justice. Even though you got rid of players, you're still the Justice. So it's like at any point, luckily because there's only 5 players, Decay can't just go bench himself. But that being said, Decay could be like, no, I'm not playing. They have to bring in Mike from accounting to come in and play Hitscan, you know?
That would be fun.
Part of me wants that. Part of me wants one of their players to get sick, so they have to bring in the staff member to play. And then suddenly Justice don't look smart anymore for not having 6 players on the roster. But
they do look cheap.
They're doing the NYXL strat, you know? They're running up, and I want Justice to do well, but it's the Justice, so it's like you got to be cautious.
You can't really.
You're like you can't give them too much credit because they have a history of doing this, performing really well against a team or two, and then just deciding they don't want to play anymore.
Sounds like another team I know.
All right, let me have it. I'll give you your second.
In your face! Oh yeah. It was a good week.
To be fair, though, even though you predded the Spitfire, like nobody saw it like this.
Yeah. The thing is like it was supposed to be a close
at least
game
like a hard fought Spitfire win in 5 maps. But
yeah,
instead,
like that was the Spitfire win that I was expecting. But
instead,
3-0 stomping.
Instead, the Spitfire essentially just beat up a dead dog. You literally could have put any team in Spitfire's place, and they would have beaten that Outlaws team. You could have put you could have put Paris there, and they would have beaten Outlaws.
And that's the thing is Houston was terrible. Like, you know, I was watching. I missed the live show, so I watched it yesterday. I was sitting there watching, and like every few minutes, I had to pause it and just like
I don't know what was happening.
To just analyze what was going on because like ult usage. Like, hello, Houston.
There were so many ults that they just held them forever.
Yeah,
and then
they would
used
hold
them at the dumb times.
Their entire team would have them. They would all use their ults. You would have Bob put in a corner alone.
Yeah, like these are the same 5 players that clutched that against the Gladiators. Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is they released Piggy. That's it. And you mean to tell me that Piggy being released boomed the heck out of these players? Because if that's the case, that's pathetic.
Yeah.
Like, I know that Piggy was your best friend, Pelican, but come on, you're getting paid to play this game. It's a business after all. The Outlaws couldn't keep Piggy on the roster. He was just burnt. They were burning money on him. And him being released makes sense from a business perspective. And at this point, it's like, as soon as the season's over, it's gonna be a speed run. How long does it take for Pelican to get released? How long?
Yeah,
like it's gonna be a matter of weeks.
I thought it was just an absolute train wreck and kind of funny.
It was. I was like, what is happening? Like they even before the match started, there were no smiles on their faces. They looked dead before the match even started.
Yeah. That being said, I think the best moment of this entire match was after the match was over. the player of the match was Backbone, who
Although
played Genji most of the time.
we both agreed though that we think Sparker
Oh, yeah,
probably
he
should have
didn't.
gotten it. Sparker
Yeah,
was going
it should have gone either
crazy.
to Sparker or Hottie looked really solid that match, or
But Backbone,
even like, but
Backbone performed well.
Yeah, he performed well, and I think a lot of it, Houston did not take care of the Genji. And the thing is no matter who it is, you could have, you know, any player in the league on Genji, good or bad, and if you just
ignore them,
do anything, they're going to get value. Like
Yeah.
that's Genji for you at this level of play. Like if you don't take care of the Genji, the Genji will take care of you.
And what
what
was interesting is in Backbone's interview with Danny afterwards, he was talking about how the Outlaws were always like the hard, and even Spilo in his he did an AMA on Reddit. And people were asking him about like who are the hardest teams that they've faced, and both Backbone and Spilo said that in scrims the Outlaws would just dunk on them every time. And Backbone said that the Outlaws they play in this match is not the Outlaws that they've been scrimming against. So like this is the worst Outlaws performance in like so long since we go back to like the Muma Raucous days of 2020. You know?
Yeah.
Like this was horrendous. And the question is, it's like, are the Outlaws just boomed, or was this a one-off thing? And that's I think what's hard to tell.
Yeah, how professional is this organization? That's what.
Not as professional as Boston, who perpetually bench Punk. But anyways.
I think what it comes down to is, I mean, that's professionals for you. They're always trying to get those punks out of the way. Anyway, I think, you know, Houston, when it comes to Houston players, I just thought of a episode name for this. Side note, if this doesn't become the episode title, fans who listen to this, all million of you, jump on Hiccup, because it's brilliant.
Okay, what
Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not spending the whole episode talking about him, though.
But that is the lesson of the week. Anyway, do with it what you want. But I think, you know, looking at who Houston has on their team, I think a lot of them are seasoned players that kind of, you know, have gone through rough times, have gone through good times, and I think they'll be fine. I don't think they're gonna be, you know, in top spot like we were saying they probably would be.
But they'll still be at least they'll make it to the gatekeeper stuff.
Yeah, I think they'll make it to the tournament. I think they could go on a run at the tournament. And
no, they don't. They don't know how to beat anybody but Toronto Defiant. Which, at the very least, at least this time, the Outlaws can send Toronto home at their own tournament.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think the Outlaws will be fine. I think, and of all the teams to lose to, London's not like a bad team. No,
London. I would rather them lose to London than having gotten 3-0 by like Boston or something. Like that would have looked really bad, because London has looked good this stage, and Outlaws, if they didn't have that win over the Gladiators, though, it would look real bad for them. Because they have the win over the Glads, they at least can make it into the tournament. If they can at least go 3-3, they have a shot at making it with some help. But if they win out and go 4-2, that's all but guaranteed. And their remaining schedule is Justice, Reign, and Titans, which, if the Outlaws play like they did against the Gladiators, super winnable matches. If they do like they did the Spitfire, they shouldn't even bother showing up in the lobby.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's my 2 cents on it. I just need that to. I never want to see that again. Ever.
Really interesting thing is Spitfire, Outlaws, and Gladiators all have the
same record, but Gladiators have like 5 more league points.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at
I think there's
differential, they're pretty dang.
They have plus 10, don't? No,
Glads are plus 16.
Spitfire plus 10, and Outlaws are plus 6. And in the regular season standing, there's a 4-team race for 3 spots. Spitfire, Toronto, Reign, and Outlaws are all competing for 4 through 6. And they're all within like 1 or 2 points of each other. So it's like one of those teams might miss this tournament, and that could be a problem, regardless of who it is. Because I don't think Defiant I think can still technically miss, but Spitfire, Reign, and Outlaws all can miss. If Spitfire, Reign, or Outlaws lose out, they're out of the tournament. And that league point like bonus could, that suddenly, if Outlaws make it and Spitfire don't, Spitfire are now 2 points behind Outlaws, and next stage they play Shock, Glads, and Dallas.
Yeah.
So this tournament is a big deal for that top 6 tournament seeding between those 4 teams. If whoever doesn't make it into the tournament is going to have to try really hard in the Countdown Cup qualifiers to make sure they don't have to go through play-ins.
Yeah, it will definitely be interesting for sure.
But now it's time
exciting stuff
for the fun part. How about we do the chaos that is power rankings?
Do we have to?
Let's start with APAC, shall we? Because there's less teams. Dynasty Dragons 1-2. Any objections?
No objective.
How many tier breaks? 1 tier break or 2 tier breaks?
I think only one.
Just
at
one
most,
for now?
because we haven't seen Spark play this meta. Let's be real. We haven't. Seen
we haven't seen. But I mean, if we think Spark is the 3rd best team and they get 0-6'd by Dynasty and Dragons, that doesn't look good.
Without their best player.
Okay, fair.
You take Kai away from Atlanta Reign, do they win games?
I mean, they're already not winning games.
That's true.
But I get your point. I get your point. So, do we think Spark are the 3rd best APAC team?
I think Spark is still the 3rd best.
Okay. I
I
think Hunters are 4th. After how badly they beat up on Fusion, I don't know how you can put anyone else in 4th unless you think the Charge are 4th, but I think that's
the Charger.
So Hunters 4th.
And then Fusion.
I think Charge looked better than Fusion did this week.
Let's see. I can't remember.
They both
I feel like anytime I watch the
Charge and Fusion both went to 5 against Valiant. Fusion got bodied by Hunters, but Charge got bodied by the Dynasty. Can you really? I mean, by the Dragons. One of those looks a little better than the other one, right?
Okay, I'll let you do it.
Jimmy looked good. It was good to see Jimmy back in the league.
And then we put 3 tier breaks.
No, I mean, and then Fusion and then Valiant.
They were close.
Charge, Fusion, Valiant all went. Charge and Fusion both went to 5 against Valiant. Fusion shouldn't be going to 5 against Valiant,
but they did.
Fusion are single-handedly giving away their tournament spot and giving away their guaranteed playoff spot.
It's fun.
It's fun. Happy Fusion
keeping
fans.
Things exciting.
All right, now we get to the mess that is NA. Shock and Fuel still 1-2 though, at the very least. Shock have tied the regular season match record with the 2019 Vancouver Titans, 19-0. They have a chance to set records this week. I don't remember who they play, but they're going to beat them anyway, so it doesn't matter. Shock will set records this week. But after we go below Fuel, then we have a mess. So it's not Outlaws anymore. Who do we think is 3rd? I want to say Defiant is my shout for 3rd, but I think there's a tier break between Fuel and 3rd.
Yeah, so I think you have San Francisco and Dallas Fuel top 2. And then I think this next batch, you have to include Defiant, Justice, Spitfire, Rain, maybe. Yeah,
it's difficult.
Definitely those 3. Justice, Defiant, Spitfire.
So I think Defiant are 3. I think they've looked a whole lot better, and them being able to beat Rain and beating Gladiators in just 4. They beat Gladiators in less maps than Outlaws and Fuel did.
Yeah.
So Regardless of how good we think Gladiators are, Defiant beat them more handily than those other teams did. So I think Toronto have been looking good. 4, see, the question that comes then is how do we rate strength of schedule here? Because Spitfire beat Boston and a dead dog and then got 3-0'd by the Mayhem. But the 3-0 against the Mayhem, Spitfire were trying to play Sombra and
yeah, and I think the first match or two of a
so it's Spitfire beat Boston and a dead Outlaws. But then it's Gladiators have lost to arguably 3 or 4 of the best teams when are performing well. I don't think that Glads, you should have been able to take those, but I mean, you go to 5 against Fuel, who are the 2nd best team. You go to 5 against Outlaws when they're looking good are a top 5 team, and then you just get rolled over by Defiant and Shock, who are 1 and 3. So it's like I feel like Gladiators don't need to go too far down, but it's like if Gladiators and Spitfire played, I think that probably goes dead even, right? Like that probably goes to 5.
I mean,
because
probably.
I think Spitfire could go above Glad just because their record is better, so they've actually won.
Yeah. Well, the Glads, I think, I'll give any team one bad week.
Glads have had 2.
But they've had 2 really terrible weeks. And so it's hard to keep them, in a top 4, top 5 discussion when there are teams like Spitfire that, they, haven't looked perfect, but they are winning
They're
matches.
at least winning matches. Yeah.
They have a +4 map differential.
So
Glads
then
have a -6.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm looking at this middle tier and at least moving teams out. I mean, Mayhem doesn't deserve in the middle tier anymore after getting bopped like that. New York has come back down to earth as always. Justice are in the middle tier. I'm not ordering the teams. I'm just
I think
putting
Outlaws are in that tier.
I think they're probably.
Do we? Okay. This week, but
they'll come back.
I don't think. Yeah, I was going to say I'll allow anyone.
I think the question is, do we
week.
think Titans are in that tier? I don't think
That
so.
is the one I don't think so. I think they're high up in the next tier down.
Because it's like, the Titans went to 5 against Defiant. Oh, and look, they're on a 2-game win streak. Who'd they beat? NYXL and Paris. Oh, good job, Titans. So you beat the 2 worst teams in NA.
Yeah, their win-loss rate tells a different story than their strength of schedule.
I think they're like the top of the bottom tier, but that's it. They're not going in that middle tier. Do we think? And then Atlanta are in that middle tier as well, because this week's matches, they get Speedily. He speedily comes of age, and they looked better with Vigilante.
Spicy.
So I think Rain level up. So let's organize the bottom tier. Paris are definitely last. What? Paris or New York? Who do you think goes last? New York got rolled by the Titans.
But New York have won a match.
And Titans
Paris
have won
haven't.
2. But Paris, new Paris roster has only played 1 match, though.
Yeah, but I still think because they haven't proven themselves, I think Paris still goes.
You leave them there? Okay. Do we think
that could change?
Mayhem versus New York. Do you think New York above Mayhem or Mayhem above New York?
I think Mayhem above New York for sure.
And then Boston Titans? That seems about right? Okay. So that's our bottom tier. So now we've got 6 teams in this middle tier. Defiant, we've pretty much agreed, number 3.
Yeah.
But then we get to the other teams. So it's like if Glads and Spitfire played, I could see that one going 50-50. But Outlaws just beat Glads, so you can't put Glads above Outlaws. Spitfire beat Outlaws, so we have Spitfire above Outlaws. But then it's like Justice and Rain, who haven't played any of these teams.
Yeah, so I think the way that I have it placed on my side, and some of this might be a little salty, might be a little bit of spice.
A little spicy. Okay, let's hear it.
So I have Defiant, Spitfire, Outlaws, Justice, Glads, Rain.
Justice above Glads, really?
Justice above Glads. Yeah, I think, and that could change. Like I'm rating it based off of
performance, how they've looked in their matches.
Performance so far. Glads at any point they could wake up and start winning everything.
But we need to see them wake up.
I don't think we can.
And I think that the same goes for the Rain. Is like the Rain can go higher. We just need to see them wake up this week. Because this week they play Spitfire and Outlaws, 2 perfect teams to show if you can wake up with Speedily in the roster. So next week's episode, Glads and Rain could be in different. Well, hang on. I think Glads just play Paris this week. All right, Glads, you're probably not moving a whole lot because Paris is pretty. If you lose to Paris,
if they lose to Paris, they will move.
You're dropping a whole lot. So then, how we have it is Shock Fuel, tier break, Defiant, Spitfire, Outlaws, Justice, Glads, Rain, tier break, Titans, Uprising, Mayhem, Excelsior, Paris. Yeah, I like that.
And I think any team within that middle category
can move and beat any of the others.
Anywhere else. Yeah, it just kind of depends on how they're looking. And some of these teams aren't super proven. Like the new Justice, we haven't seen too much of them.
Yeah, new Justice, Glads, and then Glads, Rain, and Outlaws need to show. Outlaws need to just show they're not permanently boomed, and then Glads need to show they're capable of winning again. And then Rain got a win, but they just need to speedily basically just need, if speedily does what we think he's going to do, Rain are just fine.
Yeah.
And they look better with Vigilante over Ultraviolet. They're trending in the right direction. Out of Glads, Outlaws, Rain are trending in the right direction the most.
Yeah.
Out of those three.
That being said, I do think it's important to point out that the Titans very well could make it to the tournament.
Oh, I don't think very well could. They have, what, 2 wins now? Let me pull it up as well on my end.
They have 2 wins, and their next games... Let's see, who else were they going against?
So next week, the Titans play Washington and Houston next week. And then the final week of qualifiers, they play Boston. So
they could beat Boston,
and they could beat Justice, depending.
And if the Outlaws are
boomed
like
again,
they could. And so it's like
a 5-1 stage for Vancouver. What is this, 2019?
If the Titans win at least one of those, they're at least in the running.
Yes,
they
3
have a
wins.
+5 map differential.
3 wins.
If these are at least close.
Basically, what Titans need to do is win one of those games and then not get stomped the other 2. Because if they win one of them, but then get 6-0'd, you're not gonna make it with like a negative map differential is unlikely. Like I think you have to at least be 3-3-0 in my opinion to make it. But if they lose 2 of those matches, they can pretty much kiss it goodbye. So they're in a bit of, and basically most of the teams are. The only teams that are like safe are Dallas and Shock.
Yeah.
Like every other team because no other team.
Because even the Defiant, they're 3-1, but they only have a +3.
And they still have to play Spitfire, and they also play, hang on, I'm looking through. They play Spitfire, and then this week.
They play Boston, I think.
This week they play Boston. Oh, they just have 2 games left. So Boston, Spitfire. So it's like, even if they go 3-3, they just have to not get rolled. But it's like, that's still, they're the 3, they're up there, and they can still fall out. Same with Justice. So, nobody's safe going into these final 2 weeks. But, it's prediction time. And I might go a bit silly, but that depends on what your Preds are. Because your Preds could align with mine, and then I don't look silly anymore because we're agreeing. So, the first matchup that we have is Hunters versus Spark. And
can I just pause real quick and say, why do we keep predding APAC? APAC is unpreddable. Like they're unknowable. They're like
unknowable, yeah.
Yeah, they're like the Trinity in Catholicism. It's like it's an unknowable thing.
An unknowable thing. APAC is an enigma. We don't understand.
Yeah. And I'm okay with my personal lack of understanding, I'm just it makes it more exciting to go for the ride. It makes my Preds look painfully terrible.
Yeah, when we both Pred Spark and they go 0-6, yeah. But I will say,
and when we Pred Spark again,
they did tweet. Spark itself didn't tweet, but there was a tweet that showed Alpha E with the team. So Alpha E should be playing. So I'm Predding Spark on the grounds that Alpha E is playing. If he's not playing, they lose.
I think even if he's not,
they still
lose.
Really? You're going okay.
No, I'm going Spark.
Like Hunters looked good
without Alpha E. It'll be rough, but Hunters they just don't have it.
They're the Hunters.
They could have it. You never know because it's APAC. And so Jinmu could be having a really good day. He could just be like cracked out of his mind, snorting the mega aim juice that he does occasionally. And if that's the case, then he'll
just roll. Good luck, Spark.
But if Alpha Yi's playing, Jinmu comes out on the freaking Pharah.
Alpha E just comes out an Echo and just rolls him.
Yeah, it's just over. So I think, I think Spark win that.
So we're now going 3 Preds in a row for Spark. If they boom us again,
they're the new Justice.
Oh man, please Spark. All right, next game. Oh, this one I feel like could suck. Charge Fusion. This one is the ultimate APAC Pred because which Fusion decides to show up? I'm going off the basis that it's not the good Fusion. Charge Jimmy is going to have his way with Carpe. I can't believe I'm Predding Charge.
Just coin flip this because that's pretty much what we're doing. And I'm doing Fusion.
All
Not
right.
because I think they'll win,
But because the coin determined.
because we are both terrible at predicting APAC.
APAC.
We proved that in the past, and I'm just gonna bet on the fact that you'll be wrong. That's what this is.
So,
This
I mean,
isn't
to
me
be fair,
thinking,
if Fusion roll out with MN3 in the starting roster, they probably win.
they'll be in a good spot.
But
yeah.
they probably won't do that because
No,
they
because
just
it's
are attached
Fusion.
to Carpe.
Yeah.
Either way, I feel like this match is gonna hurt to watch. If it's anything like the Valiant games that were last week, oh, it's gonna hurt. All right, Titans versus Outlaws. Obviously,
I've gotten the last 2 Outlaws Preds
I'm going
right,
with my boys. I have faith in them.
and you've gotten the last 2 Outlaws Preds wrong.
And you're pretting Titans, I'm assuming then.
I haven't decided yet.
It's what this comes down to is which Outlaws shows up.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's the okay. What games do the Outlaws have next week?
They
so
have
it's
this one and Rain.
And the Rain. And when do they play against the Rain?
They play against the Rain on Sunday. Let me look. Checking. They play against Vancouver on Saturday. They play against Rain on Sunday. So they have the last slot Saturday and then the second slot Sunday.
And this is Vancouver's second game of the week. I think Vancouver beats Washington. Oh, we're predicting that match later.
Oh, well, I already know. Okay.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
But I've predicted against you on the last 2 Outlaws.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
it's like
the only
how,
thing keeping it. So it's like,
what do you? Because if you pred Titans, you're basically predding for an Outlaws implosion for the remaining of the stage, essentially.
yeah, I'm gonna pred Outlaws on this one.
All right.
Because I
just don't
get their crap together.
I don't think they do it again. There's like
I think they lose against Atlanta potentially.
Well, it depends on which Atlanta. Because Atlanta also plays London this week, so Atlanta doesn't have easy matches either.
Yeah, but I don't think they have fallen so far that they lose to Vancouver.
No, and I don't. I think I'm pretty. There's no way that. Dante and the boys came out of the match room. They finished the match. I'm pretty sure Jake had the whip. He was cracking. He was like, guys, what are you doing? I'm pretty sure Jake cracked the whip. Jake and Junkbuck cracked the whip.
Well, and Outlaws have a history of like
dropping
ebbs and flows, and so it's like usually when they do this, it's like they lose really bad on a game that they shouldn't lose, and then they
beat the Gladiators.
Totally dominate the next week. Yeah. So it's like I am not that worried yet. I'm not
if they lose the Titans then if they lose the Titans, okay. Their season will be in a bit of a worry. All right. So, next one. So this is a fun one. Spitfire versus Rain. I feel like this is my favorite matchup of teams because in the kickoff clash when they faced, it was so funny when they just decided to mirror the Reinhardt for who knows what reason. And then when Spitfire knocked them out of the upper bracket in the mid-season madness, and then Rain just went on a tear.
Yeah. I think it should be. I feel like there's a little bit of a rivalry against these teams where the Spitfire are like the little brother, the underdog,
who have beaten the older brother twice.
That comes back and they win these, and I feel like they kind of are. I feel like they're kind of opposite teams where the Rain is just this, this really strong force of like. Yeah, I know. It's love these
funny.
matches.
These matches when they play.
It's a fun match, and I feel like the Rain is the most serious of the teams. Like
they're very serious.
They take it serious, and then you have the Spitfire that
they're just happy to be here.
Pretty much a meme,
They're just happy to be here.
Yeah, and so it's like, like Atlanta Rain is California Adventure, and Spitfire is Toontown. Like. Not even Disneyland, Toontown.
Toontown. Oh man.
And I think it's going to be a fun match, and I think Spitfire are going to win.
I think Rain are going to win. I think Speedly's going to go sicko mode.
Yeah, I think he could.
My bet really is that Speedily is going to diff the heck out of Backbone, and Kai and Sparker are going to trade blows because Sparker's his sojourn is really
Yeah,
good.
I feel like Sparker's one of the few sojourns that can go head to head against Kai
Yeah.
in the West. Like the East has some insane stuff,
And
but
it's
in the
like the
West, I think
rain.
they're
The
kind
rain
of
looked better against Paris. And what's funny is that is the first match of the week, Friday, 1:00, London versus Atlanta, and it will be speedily. He turns 18 on Friday. So it's like what it really comes down to is how much practice time has Speedily been getting. But I mean, there's no way that Atlanta has been paying this guy for half a season for him to not play when he turns 18. Like
I could see him waiting a week.
No, because these are must-win matches. And if Speedily is as cracked as the grapevine says he is, then he should be an upgrade over Nero, and you would want him in as soon as possible, right? Like that's kind of, and it's like literally Genji Echo, like his heroes.
Yeah, that's true. It'll be interesting, that's for sure.
I mean, even if
but I still think the thing is like I think if Speedily plays, he'll look really good. He'll have some really great plays. He'll outplay Backbone,
but he
but
won't
I
be
think
coordinated with the team.
the team won't be as coordinated, and I think that's kind of always been London's strength, and I think that's still going to be London's strength, and I think they'll have that over the rain in this match.
If it comes down to that, if Speedily is disconnected with the team, then I think London can take it. But either way, if this doesn't go to 5, then I'm going to be disappointed whichever team drops the ball and doesn't let it go to 5.
I have a feeling it's not going to go to 5. I think it's either going to be a 3-1 or 3-0.
You think one team's just going to run away with it with momentum?
It could go either way. I'm hoping it's Spitfire, but I don't think it's going to be super close map-wise. I think, individual maps will be close.
For the sake of the Outlaws, I'd love for it to be lopsided, because then that'll really hurt the map differential of the other, because the Outlaws are directly competing with these teams for those bottom spots. So it's like, Atlanta winning, I just think Speedily should pop off, but if London win it, regardless of who wins, if it's a 3-0, that's good for the Outlaws.
That's true.
So, it should be a fun match. These matches London-Atlanta is always a fun matchup to watch. And then the final one that you've already spoiled your pred for, you're going with Titans over the Justice, and so am I.
Titans will go over Justice.
Here we go. We get thankfully, we're coming into this match. I feel better about the quality of play in this match than I did when they played last stage, because last stage's Titans Justice match was it took years off of my life.
Yeah, I think this should be a good match, and I don't mean good necessarily as close, but I do think it'll be close. But on top of that, I think it'll be like good quality of play.
And
I don't think
both of these teams need this win, because Justice still have to play Outlaws and London, and Titans still have to play Toronto. No, Titans still have to play Houston, and then the week following they have to play Boston, which is like those. If they lose to Washington, then that Boston and Outlaws games are must wins if they want to make it into the tournament. Because I mean, if they lose to Washington and the Outlaws and then beat Boston, they're 3-3, and depending on how badly they lose, their map differential could really hurt them. Well, I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of teams at 3-3.
Yeah,
because this meta is just kind of like a whole lot of wonky. Because it's like, yeah, London are in a good place, but they still have to play Washington. They play Atlanta, and then next week they play Toronto. So it's like those aren't gimme wins for London, and then Outlaws also have to play Washington and Atlanta. It's just,
I forget, what's the policy for ties with the same map differential?
The first one is head to head. Let me pull it up since you asked.
Because I don't think it necessarily will come into play, but it definitely could.
It did for Midseason Madness, which was hilarious. All right, tie breaking. So for regional tournaments, number one, map differential. Second one is head to head record in qualifying matches, which in the case of Spitfire, Outlaws, Rain, they all play each other in some form or another. So that one will have a direct, if Spitfire and Outlaws tied, Spitfire would take it, that kind of thing. And then the one after that, which I don't think you would even get to, because you only play against each other once. I guess it'd be if they didn't play against each other. But because these teams play against each other, you wouldn't even get to head-to-head map differential in qualifying matches.
But if all three of them are tied with the same record, and let's say they've all beaten each other,
and they're all competing for one spot.
Yeah.
Oh. So essentially the scenario we're looking at is Outlaws, Rain, Spitfire tied. Spitfire beat Outlaws, Outlaws beat Rain, Rain beat Spitfire.
Yeah, and they lose the other way
And
around.
they lose the other way around. So head-to-head record in qualifying matches. So it would like the Spitfire would beat the Outlaws, but the Outlaws would beat the Rain, but the Rain would beat the Spitfire. So then you would go to head-to-head map differential, which you would then get. You'd look at the victories, and whoever probably had the best map differential in their win
And
over
so,
the others.
No matter what, London win.
If they tie in map differential, you know how unlikely that is.
Oh, I know. It would be kind of crazy.
But then if somehow you're tied, go to number 4, strength of victory evaluated by combining league points of all teams beaten in qualifying matches. Oh, well, guess what? The Outlaws beat the Gladiators. So, 17 points.
Gosh darn it.
The Outlaws would get more points just off of one team than the Spitfire would get off of a couple. Oh, that's pretty funny. But it won't get to that point. It's next week's, after this week's matches, the final week of matches is it's like, it literally could come down to the last day of matches. Because, like, the last match of the week of the qualifiers before going into the Summer Showdown, come on, regular season schedule load. I want to see what the final match is. It's like, okay, here it is. The final matches, the final day is Florida, New York. That one's probably, well, no, that one could determine it for Florida. And then the other game that day, London, Toronto. That could determine it for London. Like, we literally could be coming down to the final 2 matches to determine who qualifies. And it could be like Atlanta and Houston sitting there hoping that either London or Florida just burn out and just flame out. So we're in a close spot. But these matches should be fun this week. I'm hoping APAC doesn't just ruin our faces again. But we'll see.
Which they could.
They could. They always. It has in the past. All right. Final segment, our favorite segment, play of the week. This week isn't actually a play, but that's just the segment name. What I love this week, what was super fun to see. You go through the first 3, you go through the first 2 APAC matches, you go through, New York, Vancouver on Friday, and, the overlay sucks. White on white, what are you doing? But then, suddenly, for San Francisco, Boston, moving forward, they decided double home team colors on the overlay.
It was so nice.
So good.
It had been so bad. I'm pretty sure I commented that to you every single time. Every game I would send you a message like, why are they doing this?
Like, obviously, they still have to do away, when blue teams played each other, when Chengdu, Philly played each other double orange. But, I mean, we even got treated to pink versus red when Spark and Dragons played, which they changed after, like, map 1, I think, to Spark to the away team. But we got pink-red, we got green-blue, orange purple. It was so colorful. We got red, blue. It looked so good, and it was so fun to look at, like, color-wise. I hope that for the rest of the season, anytime they can, they just do double home skins. It just there's no reason not to. Like, they're like, if both teams have completely different colors, there's no reason not to just do double home skins. Because it just looks more colorful, it looks more visually appealing, and you can actually read the names and percentages.
Yeah, imagine that.
Not when they were doing...
Yeah, that was the biggest problem, is anytime, there was a team with a roster that I wasn't super familiar with, or, there was new player in, like Doja's first game.
You couldn't see it, yeah.
I couldn't see his name, like, at all. It was terrible. And so it was great to see. What a week.
It was just, I mean, when Shock Uprising started, YouTube chat was like, wait a minute. They did the double home. They did the double home. Oh, it looks so good. And it was even funny as I think I don't know if somebody tweeted it Zoe, but like Zoe had a tweet where she was like, yeah, we're going to get right on it. We're going to fix it. And I thought it was just a meme tweet where people are...
but they actually fixed it.
But they actually, like, somebody straight up went into the booth and went, fix this immediately. And what we got was so pleasing for the eyes and looked so good. I hope that just for the remainder of the season, double home skins, it just looks so nice. So good. Especially when Spark are playing, you get the pink. Like, when Spark play the Hunters, we're going to get orange and pink. Oh, that's going to look nice. When Charge and Fusion play, we get, like, the dark blue with orange. Titans Outlaws, we're gonna like a dark blue with a bright green. Spitfire Rain, blue with red. Titans Justice with green red potentially, or blue. It's gonna look so good.
So much better.
I'm hoping that we get some good color combos in this coming week. But that is another week of Junker chaos. And we're going to get another 2-3 more weeks of chaos caused by Junker Queen. And I hope to goodness it doesn't get too crazy. Because I don't need it coming down to the wire with 6 teams tied at 3-3.
Oh, yeah. That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it. Well, we hope you all enjoy this week's coming matches. And we will catch you all next week. See ya.